go, you see some kind of trash or litter along the roads, in parking lots, in open spaces, and it continues to accumulate and look really awful, unless, of course, someone does something about it. And that's exactly what Michael Croci did. He literally got a group of volunteers together to clean up Framingham. And now it has blossomed into a group called Keep Framingham Beautiful.
So the inspiration for Keep Framingham Beautiful goes back about probably 3.5 years to sometime in 2018 or 2019. I was actively volunteering with Transition Framingham at the time, and in a couple of community events that we had done with Transition Framingham, I met a guy named Joe Hudock, and Joe and I got chatting about kind of like what he was into, what his passion was, and it was clear that his singular passion was picking up litter. And he expressed to me at the time that he really wanted to do like a citywide initiative for picking up litter, but he really didn't know how to get started. So over the course of those couple of conversations, I would say the seed got planted in my brain. But at the time I was involved in several other things, so starting a new initiative wasn't tops on my list. But then ultimately in 2020, when I was director of the Framingham Earth Day Festival, and we had to cancel the festival due to COVID, and of the 10 or 12 ideas that we came up with, the thing that kept bubbling to the top was litter cleanups, because that was something that we could do as individuals within the community. We could do it at a safe distance from everybody. So I think the seeds that Joe planted a couple of years before the group actually started were in my head. And then when we had the opportunity to shift gears with the festival in 2020, the idea for a litter cleanup initiative rose to the top for a lot of reasons. But I oftentimes give Joe Hudock the full inspiration behind this, because he was doing this for years before we actually did it as a community.
So is Joe still involved in the effort now?
Yeah, he's probably the singular most active member. He was at pretty much every group cleanup we did over the last year. He goes out every day and patrols his route that's in and around 126, just south of Route 9. He's on the steering committee. He is still probably the most active person we've got.
Let's talk a little bit about the team. How did that grow?
So as I mentioned, when we started the group, we actually launched it on Earth Day 2020. We launched the night before Earth Day on April 21st, 2020, with the idea that Earth Day itself was going to be our first day as a community. And we launched what was originally called Clean Up Framingham as a Facebook group, with the simple request that, hey, we're all kind of stuck inside on this crazy pandemic. Like, we know a lot of people are going on walks already just to break up the day. Like, why don't you bring some gloves and a bag and pick up trash? And, that first day we invited 3 or 4 of us, invited all of our Framingham Facebook friends to the group. And within a day or two, we had like 300 members. And within a week, we had 75 cleanups registered, because we were encouraging people to like go out, pick up trash, but then post about it on the group to kind of build the community. And so, we started out with just a few hundred members, and it snowballed from there. People heard about us, people saw their friends posting, saw their neighbors out picking up trash. And we went from, 300 to 500 to 800 to 1,000 members over the first year or so.
How quickly did it grow?
So I think it was a really good timing for us to launch it at the beginning of the pandemic, when people were looking for something to do, but also launch it in the early spring when the weather was conducive to people going out. So the first month was like, this felt like we caught lightning in a bottle. It was just like the perfect combination of circumstances. And, over the summer, things started opening up a bit. People started getting into other things, whatever. So I wouldn't say it's slowed down, but it wasn't growing as quickly. It's taken some intentionality over the last year to year and a half of hosting more cleanups and doing more outreach and getting new members to keep the growth going. But yeah, it's more or less grown organically for the nearly 2 years that we've been around.
And now you've become actually a formal 501c3 organization. And is that correct?
Yeah, well, we're not our own 501c3. We are fiscally sponsored by Keep Massachusetts Beautiful, which gives us our tax exempt status. Starting our own nonprofit from the ground up, it requires a fair bit of work and paperwork and annual submitting of forms to the state and the federal government. And so we've established a relationship with Keep Massachusetts Beautiful, where they handle most of the nuts and bolts. And we have tax exempt status via that particular arrangement. That said, we joined Keep Massachusetts Beautiful in February of 2021 because we realized that we were growing beyond this little Facebook group and we needed a little bit of structure and we wanted a fiscally sponsored organization for tax exempt status, et cetera. And in the, approximately year since we've been Keep Framingham Beautiful officially, we formed a steering committee and we have several subcommittees, and we're, doing a lot of work operating as a nonprofit might operate without, having to do all the paperwork ourselves.
Sounds like it's coming together quite well. And I know that you're wearing some of your swag right now. KFB, Keep
Yeah,
Framingham Beautiful.
exactly. The acronyms just kind of rolls off the tongue these days with a lot of our members. Keep Framingham Beautiful is a lot of syllables. It's hard to say every time. And so when we rebranded from Clean Up Framingham to Keep Framingham Beautiful in February of 2021, I started just typing KFB in a lot of our internal documents because typing Keep Framingham Beautiful is a lot of work, but it just became an easy way for us to refer to the organization in a lot of different ways, both written and verbally and otherwise. So, we have these t-shirts that I wear pretty regularly. We got 250 of them in 2021, mostly, to tell you the truth, we got the t-shirts for safety. We figured we're going to have people out cleaning up roadsides and parking lots, and we wanted to be bright and present and recognizable from a safety perspective. And so a lot of our branding has gone with this this blue color on the yellow, because the blue is part of our logo. And so we recently got these winter hats for the diehards that are out there cleaning up in January and February to try to keep us a little warmer, but also to continue that brand recognition and the visibility and the safety and all that. So the hats have been fun. A lot of people have been really excited about getting them.
What kind of tools do you provide for people, or do they provide their own? And how do you encourage people to follow safety rules and make sure that, what they're doing doesn't cause any safety hazards in the process?
So that's a great question. Beyond the shirts and the hats, we also have gloves and grabbers and other tools and gear that we offer to the community for a suggested donation. So basically, we basically have suggested donations that are equivalent to what we paid for the gear, so that we don't run at a negative financially for the organization. And I would say about 90 to 95% of the folks in the community are happy to donate as much, if not more, than we ask for certain things. I would say 50% of the people usually donate more than we ask because they want to support the organization beyond the gear that they purchase. There's been many times that folks have come to events and they don't have money on them, or they can't afford the donation. So we give away a fair bit of free gear under those circumstances. And then if somebody wants to come to a group cleanup and they don't have a grabber of their own or gloves of their own, but they don't necessarily want to purchase or donate, we have loaners. So I have a half dozen loaner grabbers that I bring to every event. So if somebody wants to just borrow one for the hour and a half that they're there, but doesn't necessarily want to purchase one of their own. So, we have a couple of different models to make sure that people have the supplies they need to help out.
Now, Mike, how do you decide where you're going to have the cleanups?
That's a great question, because there's probably 1,000 worthy places of doing cleanups in Framingham at any given time. And so we've been putting a lot of folks in downtown Framingham recently. And so that's just like a running effort of continuously trying to clean up downtown Framingham. I think we've done 8 cleanups in the last 15 or 16 months in downtown cleanup, with many planned over the course of this winter. So, it's just sort of like squeaking wheel gets the grease kind of a thing. If somebody really wants to do a cleanup of Farm Pond Park, we'll do a cleanup of Farm Pond Park, So we have sort of an internal list of possible places, but as I said, there's, far too many for us to get at all at once. So we're just chipping away, trying to make progress whenever we can.
What are some of the craziest things you've found during cleanup?
Whew. I mean, so many mattresses, tires, just random pieces of wood. We found all these hunks of a bed frame a couple weeks ago. We found the remnants of a water cooler that might have been in an office at some point. All kinds of metal, shopping carts, you name it. If people don't want to deal with it, they'll find a place to dump it, unfortunately. So we found a lot of different things.
Anything of great value?
Okay, so that's a great question. Probably my favorite KFB story of all time. Al Raposa is an active member of our group, and he's active in many parts of the community. He's part of the Plymouth Church and does a bunch of stuff with them, and he donates time to a place to turn food pantry in Natick, and he's just a really wonderful all-around person. He's another one of these guys that was doing cleanups before we even became a group, and when he found out there was a group, he was like, oh my gosh, like my family, I found them. So he's been doing it for a long time, and he did a cleanup sometime in 2021 along Route 9, and he found $100 bill like on the side of Route 9. And within 24 hours, he had not only picked up the $100 bill, but he reached out to a place to turn food pantry, asked them what they needed most. They apparently needed jars of jelly. So we went to BJ's and spent $100 on jelly and dropped it off later that day with the food pantry. So
Wow.
something of great value was found, but it was immediately put back into the community. And I just feel like that particular story resonates very deeply with me, because it's the spirit of community that we're really trying to foster. We're not just about picking up litter. It is clearly our number one focus. And I imagine we've got years ahead of us to really solve the litter problem in Framingham. But like along the way, we're trying to just be good stewards of the community in a number of different ways. So that's
So
my favorite
inspiring.
story.
Yeah, that's a heartwarming story for sure. And thanks for sharing that. Really appreciate it. When you're out there picking up the trash and you're deciding on locations, what do you do with the things you pick up? Like, where do you then bring all the trash? If you're talking about water coolers, mattresses, big items, not everything's easy to dispose of. Of course, you have many bags as well, but what do you actually do with all of that?
It's a great question, because it's always like, where does this junk go? So I have to give a huge amount of credit and appreciation to the Framingham DPW. They are one of our perpetual sponsors, and whenever we do a larger cleanup, they are able to swing in a day or two afterwards and dispose of the materials. And because they have recycling streams that they manage, like the metal and the wood and some of the other things end up in recycling streams, and obviously things that are trash, they are able to dispose of. So they help us out as much as we ask of them. If we ask them to dispose of every single bag of trash that we picked up, I think they'd get a little annoyed with us. So our model that started out is very much an individual cleanup model, where people would go out around their neighborhoods or local parks. You know, basically we tell people, if you pick up a bag or even two small bags, like, if you can just take care of it yourself, it'd be great. And oftentimes people put it in their own, 96-gallon trash barrel at their house, or they, know of a dumpster or someplace to put it. So if it's a small cleanup by one or two people, usually 99% of the time people can manage it themselves. As I mentioned, the larger cleanups is where the DPW comes in. The smaller group cleanups, like the 5 to 15 person cleanups, I'm really trying to have us get creative and nimble with our disposal, so that we don't have to bother the DPW every single time we have 5 contractor bags. So we've started establishing relationships with local businesses and organizations who have additional dumpster space. So there's a couple of businesses downtown that we have relationships with. There's a couple of churches that we have relationships with that allow us to throw 3 to 5 bags, every now and again into. And for me, that's better, because I don't want to have to bother the DPW to come pick up 5 bags if we can
Right.
deal with it. And the other thing is, sometimes the DPW, being as busy as they are, they may not be able to come for 2 or 3 days. And I don't want to leave, a half dozen bags sitting on the side of the road after the cleanup. I want to just like have them disposed of within minutes of the cleanup being over, so that we're done. So if it's a 30 bag cleanup, yeah, that's where the DPW comes in. But if it's less than 10, we try to manage it ourselves. We're in the process of developing a subcommittee of the steering committee called the KFB Truck Crew, and we've got 3 members of the community that have pickup trucks. So if there's a small to medium cleanup and we've got a place to dispose of it, that's where we'll bring in somebody from the truck crew to kind of help us move things from point A to point B. But I guess the answer is, there's a lot of different ways and a lot of different places that the trash goes, because there isn't just one solution to the litter problem.
It sounds like you're forming some really excellent partnerships to meet the various needs of the organization. And in forming those partnerships, the organization will continue to grow.
Yeah, absolutely. We can't do it ourselves. I mean, we have a lot of wonderful people that have a lot of enthusiasm for this problem that we're trying to solve. But in the end, like, we feel like, a lot of the work that I've done in the community, I always say that it's environmentally focused, but it's really community building. So, this is an environmental problem that we're trying to solve, but we're really trying to strengthen the ties to the community. That's ultimately the goal. So, establishing relationships with local businesses, local organizations, and otherwise that we can partner with, not only on the litter stuff, but then maybe down the line when we've gotten a handle on the litter, maybe there's other bigger problems that we want to solve, and we'll have built those relationships and established those connections and partnerships. So yeah, we're not trying to do this ourselves. We're not trying to do it in the back alleys without telling anybody. We're trying to establish as many connections as we possibly can in the community, to build a robust community that can solve any number of problems down the line.
You've shown up at some businesses sporadically to clean up their areas. And what kind of reception did you get when that happened?
Yeah, I mean, usually the business are thrilled when you show up and start picking up trash. They're so a great example is, I live on the south side of town, and there's a liquor store called Waverly Wine and Spirits. It's right next to the Walgreens on the corner of 135 and Cedar Street in Mellon. And I've been going to that liquor store for 14 years since I've lived in this part of town, and it recently changed ownership about 3 or 4 months ago. So the guys that own it, they've been just so wonderful to their customers. We've been going there for a while, but they're new, and so we show up and they ask us what we really like, and is there anything they want us to they want them to carry or whatever. So I've already sort of established a bit of a relationship with them. But I showed up a couple of weeks ago and just started picking up the trash around their area, and quickly realized how much trash is in that parking lot. And so I went in and asked them if I could throw the trash that I was picking up, into their dumpster, so I didn't have to haul it away. And they were like, of course you can do that. Absolutely. Well, sure enough, the area around their dumpsters was probably the messiest situation I've ever seen. So one of the days I was down there, I cleaned up the entire area around both of their dumpsters and put the stuff in the dumpsters and neatened it up. And they were like beyond thrilled. And now that's one of the local organizations or local companies that businesses that is allowing us to occasionally use their additional dumpster space when we do cleanups elsewhere, because they're deeply appreciative of the work that we're doing. So generally speaking, we've met a lot of folks in the community. They're just thrilled with the idea that we're willing to clean up their spaces and be part of an evolution of a cleaner, greener, litter-free community that they can appreciate as well. Because most of these small business owners, especially in the times we're living now, they just they're barely getting by with the little bit of manpower they have. So it's not like they have time to go out for 30 minutes and pick up trash in their parking lot. They're just trying to make it as a company. So,
Right.
they're deeply appreciative of the help that we can provide.
You said before, that the litter obviously and cleaning up and keeping the environment looking better and is a big part of it. But then you also mentioned community. Can you talk a
Mm.
little bit more about the community aspect of it?
Yeah, I mean, so I came to volunteer work through my focus on environmentalism. I started working with the Framingham Earth Day Festival and Transition Framingham probably 6 or 7 years ago. And in doing so, I realized that while there are environmental challenges that we're trying to address, really it seemed like everything that I was getting involved in was in community building. And I realized that, when I started attending meetings for the Earth Day Festival, Transition Framingham, and later other groups that I became involved in, that it was almost more important the people that I was meeting than the work that we were doing. So I was finding my tribe. That's one of my mottos in life, is just find your tribe, whether it's environmentalism or woodworking or whatever you're into, just find the other people that are into those kinds of things. Cause it's so inspiring when you're looking at some of the daunting challenges that we face environmentally or in the world and otherwise. It's so daunting, but if you can find people that live down the road from you or across town that are into those kinds of things, all of a sudden, not only do things that seemed impossible become possible, but it's just a lot more fun. It's so much more fun to pick up trash rather with 20 people than by yourself. So in the end, we're obviously have very specific focus of picking up litter and trying to reduce the amount of litter that ends up on the ground and all of that. But the people are where it's at. I've just met some of the most incredible people in this community that I don't know if I ever would have met if it wasn't for, picking up trash. So in the end, I think it's about building community to inspire people to keep doing what they believe in. Because the Joe Hudocks and Al Reposes of the world, sure, they were picking up trash by themselves, but they were getting overwhelmed by how much work it was to do by themselves. And then I see the looks on their faces when they come to the group cleanups and there's 20 or 30 other people. And it continues to inspire the people that really believe in this, that might have given up a long time ago. Al Raposa was keeping a map of all the places that he had cleaned up in Framingham by himself before and during KFB. And about a year ago, he shared that map on the group, and he made it very clear that he wasn't sharing the map as a look at how much I've done or look how much more I've done than you. He was sharing it because he said that he would have given up on trying to fill in the map if it wasn't for the inspiration of Keep Framingham Beautiful. And it was just such a wonderful post about, like, you know, you guys continue to inspire me to keep up my own personal mission, which happens to align with the mission of the organization. So yeah, we're building a community of people that have pride in Framingham, and that's what we're really doing. And litter's the thing that kind of crystallizes us or brings us all together. But it's just people that care about the look of Framingham,
and it's so positive.
Well, that's one of my new favorite quotes, right? So, like, you know, my partner makes fun of me all the time because I'm such an eternal optimist. I perpetually find the good in things and people, and I oftentimes, you know, to my own detriment, overlook the negativity because I just don't want to believe that it's there. But so when we were beginning Clean Up Framingham, that became Keep Framingham Beautiful, one of the core tenets, one of the core requests of the posts that people put on the group was try to be positive. Like, I know it stinks. We're in a pandemic. I know there's a lot of trash, but like, we're trying to build a positive community here. So it was very much at the forefront of what we started it with and what we were hoping to build from the beginning. And it's perpetuated ever since. So my favorite quote that I sometimes use now, we were nominated for the Keep Massachusetts Beautiful Rookie Chapter of the Year in 2021, and we ended up winning the award among several other amazing organizations. But when we were being given the thank you, when we were being given the award in December 2021 from Neil Ryan of the executive director of Keep Massachusetts Beautiful, he had a little intro to the award, and I distinctly remember him saying that Keep Framingham Beautiful is one of the rare places on the internet, and especially on Facebook, where there's only positivity and no negativity. And, you know, you're on Facebook, a lot of people are, like, there's just so much negativity that gets flown around in a number of different groups in Framingham and otherwise. And we've been largely immune to that through intentionality, but that's the community that we wanted to create. We didn't want it to be people complaining about litter every single day. We wanted people to be celebrating their successes, big and small.
Do you want to give a shout out to the folks that manage that Facebook page? Do you have some folks that are dedicated to that?
Yeah, so we have a few members of our community that are specifically our moderators. So Natalia and Melissa are our two chief moderators at this point. They took over the reins from Deborah Kaplan and myself. I'm the chairperson of the steering committee, and Deborah's the team's vice chair. But as the community has grown and as our goals have grown, Deborah and myself have built out a steering committee of about 18 members of the community, and Melissa and Natalia became our social media team, and they've taken over the reins about a month ago and done a great job of moderating the group and, you know, and keeping an eye on things. So yeah, the social media team we're growing into other endeavors, but always at the core of what we do will be our Facebook group. That is the community. That is where people gather and share and root each other on. You know, we'll be connecting with businesses and schools and doing a number of projects in the community this year, but it all sort of gets funneled through to the Facebook group.
So for the people watching who now want to connect through the Facebook group or to Keep Framingham Beautiful in other ways, what would you recommend in terms of how they make those connections?
Yeah, if people are on Facebook, simply going to Facebook and searching for Keep Framingham Beautiful will pull up our Facebook group. So joining the group is the best way to get injected into the community, because like I said, the group is the community. There's more details on getting involved in a number of other ways on our website, which is keepframinghambbeautiful.org, or we have a shortened URL, which is k-f-b.org. So yeah, either of those two places are the best place to start. And, you know, people can go from there and get involved as much as they'd like to.
Do you also encourage people to contact you by email or just through social media?
No, so Keep Framingham Beautiful at gmail.com is our only email address. So if folks want to reach out via email, that's the best way to do it. The email address is on our website, as well as other ways to connect with us and donate and otherwise. But yes, if folks want to send us an email, that is always appropriate.
Mike, what are you hoping for longer term for the effort that's underway right now? Do you have a vision of where you want to see this grow or go?
Yeah, the vision always includes the words litter free Framingham, which, you can call it a vision, you can call it impossible. I don't really care. But that's my vision, is for us to literally not only pick up all the residual litter that's there, but to reach out into the community from an educational standpoint and really try to prevent the litter from being thrown in the future. Because, picking up the litter that's there is great, but then if you still have the same folks that are throwing it on the ground, you're just going to be in this perpetual cycle of picking it up. So we're really trying to focus our efforts on the two main areas of litter cleanup. There's a lot already on the ground, but then litter prevention. And we're doing that in a number of ways this year, but that's the big thing, is litter. So I mean, if that's a 3-year vision or a 20-year vision, I'm not really sure. We've been at it for a couple of years. It still seems like we got a long way to go. It seems like we're trending in the right direction, and we're definitely making progress every week, every month, every year. Beyond litter, when you really want to talk about the vision for the organization, this is where it comes back to community building, because we are in the process of building a very strong community of people that, like I said, have pride in Framingham. So right now we have 1,500 members in the Facebook group, and by the end of the year, I'm hoping to be somewhere between 2,000, 2,500, and maybe in 5 years we've got 5 to 10,000 people part of the community. Well, somewhere when we eclipse the worst of the litter problem, we're going to have 5,000 people that still deeply care about Framingham. So that's where we can get into other beautification efforts, whether this is like helping businesses paint dilapidated looking buildings, or doing tree plantings, or planting pollinator gardens, or whatever. We're building a team of community members that care about the community that can be deployed in any number of ways. There's other partner organizations, Keep Massachusetts Beautiful chapters and otherwise, that they start out doing litter and those other things. And I just feel like we have such a litter problem to solve that I'm trying to not get us kind of going in too many directions at once. So I'd say we've got 3 more years of like just focusing on litter. But then we'll probably slowly start to branch out into other aspects of the community. And I think that's important, because I think there's a lot of people in the community that probably deeply care about what the community looks like, but maybe they don't personally want to pick up trash, but they might paint a wall or plant a tree or whatever. So I don't want to wait 10 years before we start launching some of these other projects, because I think there's people in the community that want to maybe get their hands dirty in other ways. So I'd say 2022 is going to mostly be focused on litter. But maybe 2023 and beyond, we should really start be thinking about getting involved in other projects, just to make sure that we're engaging the community as often and in as many ways as we possibly can. Because it's not just about litter, to keep Framingham beautiful. Sure, we got to get the litter off the ground, but there's other things that can beautify Framingham that aren't just litter.
Absolutely. So, just a quick thing that ran through my mind, and that is, you talked a little bit about, litter will always be here, and it can grow to be more than litter. But how do you work towards preventing litter? Is there anything that can be done along those lines?
Yeah, I wish I had a magic wand.
Yeah.
It's
I mean, there's signs everywhere, a fine for littering. I've never seen it enforced anywhere. I don't even know why there are signs up that say that you'll be fined if you litter, because that doesn't seem like that ever happens.
yeah.
But
So
there's
litter
been
is
talk about deposits on things that might help with litter, whether it be the cans and bottle law, or whether it be incorporating a new deposit onto things like nips. Is there anything preventative that you're advocating for?
Of course, yeah. So it's tough, because I think a lot of folks that do litter probably have been doing it for a very long time. Fines, in my opinion, are not a huge part of the solution. They could be a small part of it, but the thing is, generally speaking, people aren't littering in front of cops. If it's going to be enforced, it's going to be through the Framingham Police Department. And honestly, I just feel like they've got much bigger fish to fry than chasing down people to fine them for littering. So while littering fines could be a small portion of the solution, it's not something we're focusing on right now, just because I don't think it's super effective. And I honestly just don't think that the police has the manpower to even consider it right now. So what we're doing, I think the word visibility is huge for me right now. I think by our community members getting out in the community, wearing the yellow, picking up trash, being a visible part of the community, showing folks that like we're putting forth this effort is a huge step in the right direction. Another thing that we started playing with in the end of 2021 was signage. So we put up 125 lawn signs, yellow lawn signs like this with blue text that said, please don't litter. Very simple, very basic, very clear message. Not yelling at people, but we put the word please at the beginning because we're really just requesting people to be more thoughtful. We're hoping to put up about 400 of those signs in 2022 as part of our big push in the beginning of the season. So by late March, early April, we'll be putting up several hundred signs all around town, on various roadsides and perpetually litter, collection spots and otherwise. I think that's, I don't think if somebody sees one sign, they're going to stop littering. But if they see 20 signs, I think they're going to be like, maybe I should think about this. And so I think that's part of it. A huge portion of what we want to do in 2022 is we're getting involved with the schools. So I have a bi-weekly meeting with the superintendent about getting the schools more involved and having the schools start to take ownership and really teaching kids at a young age before they become litterers that littering isn't necessarily something we want people to do. So I think there's a number of different avenues that we're exploring in the upcoming year in terms of education and visibility that will hopefully start to help. I want to go back to something because I really do believe in this, and I think this is a huge portion of how I think we can overcome the litter problem. The visibility in us cleaning up an area. So let's take an area that say has a decade's worth of trash, and some of the places we've cleaned, it seems like some of the trash is 20 or 30 years old. So if there's an area that has been collecting trash for 20 years and nobody's been cleaning it up, sure, people that maybe live around there are like, yeah, there's a lot of trash over here. I'm going to pitch this cup over with the other cups. But if we come in as a community and we clean that place like spotless, I really do think it's going to open some people's eyes to say, gee, there used to be a lot of trash here, but some people cleaned it up. Like maybe I don't put my cup there. And it's sort of that, I think that there's a term for this. It's called the broken windows theory. Like if you live in a community that has a dilapidated building and half of the windows are broken in the building, you might pick up a rock and throw it through that window, from the It's a Wonderful Life, if you've seen that movie where they're like throwing the rocks through the windows. Well, if that's the way the community looks, that's the way the community is going to act. But if somebody buys that building and renovates it and replaces the windows, like you'd have to be pretty hard pressed to pick up a rock and throw it through a brand new window. So I think that's a very established theory in terms of like social response to beautification that I think applies here. Like if we really clean up downtown Framingham, like that's not going to stop every person from throwing trash on the ground, but it's going to get some people to question whether this is the right behavior. So that's where we're starting. We're starting with, we're picking up trash, we're going to be visible, and we're hoping that it opens people's eyes and gets people to awaken. And if we put some signs and do some educational components along with that, and we start talking to businesses, et cetera, I think it's just going to keep going in the right direction. It's not a simple fix. There isn't a silver bullet, but we will get there. We will create a litter-free Framingham. I believe it.
And it sounds like the visibility is building and becoming much more, prominent throughout the community. That's definitely happening. Don't you feel it and see it?
Well, so here's a great story to bring it back to Dr. Tremblay, our wonderful superintendent. So he and I had our first call probably a month ago at this point, and he told me, like, every day I see the same guy. I'm driving into work and I see the same guy on Concord Street, and he's wearing that yellow shirt and he's picking up trash. And of course it was Joe Hudock, that's Joe's neighborhood. But just like when I was a little nervous having my first meeting with the superintendent to ask him to like manage the litter on 16 or 18 schools. I was like, am I asking for too much here? But because of that visibility, because of the shirts, because of Joe being out there every day, like Dr. Tremblay already had it in his head. He already knew who we were. He already knew what we were about. He already knew that we were attacking this problem 365 days a year, and he wanted to be part of the solution. And so that's just one story of many, but it's one of the more recent ones that I think is going to resonate with me for a long time, because if it wasn't for Joe picking up trash every day on Concord Street, like maybe Dr. Tremblay didn't know who we were or didn't have the same understanding of our passion and our commitment to this problem on a daily basis. So we are becoming more visible. Like I said, we gave up 250 shirts last year. We put up 125 signs. I ordered 50 hats, a week ago. we're really trying to be as visible as possible. And that's the yellow is obviously incredibly bright and visible. And as I said earlier, that's largely for the purposes of safety, but directly related to people being visible for safety is people being visible in general, and starting, and for other folks to start to see that. I've been doing a lot of cleanups this winter, walking up and down 135, and a lot of my neighbors have been taking notice. I ran into a neighbor of mine the other day. I'll name him by name, Bunky Smith. He works for the Parks Department. He's been active in the community for many years. And he goes, I've been seeing you around all the time. And it's just, you can't miss it with the yellow. People see us from hundreds of yards away. So, we're just going to keep making shirts and hats and signs and getting them on people, and keep trying to bring more people into the community, and just slowly but surely just becoming more and more and more visible. And, I'll use another new one of my new favorite quotes from the Low Litter crew. They have this tagline that they use: tomorrow there will be more of us. And we haven't used it in any of our literature yet, but they said that we could, because I just think that's exactly what we're trying to do. If we can get one more person each day, by the end of the year, we'll have 365 more people. If we get 3 more people every day, well, now we get 1,000. So tomorrow there will be more of us, and we will solve this problem. And it starts with visibility. It starts with getting out there and doing the work.
Absolutely. And it's growing, and it's great to see the effort just growing like that. What is something that you feel you need? If you could, wave a magic wand and get some resources that you need for Keep Framingham Beautiful, what would those resources be? Where would you have to get them from?
I get asked this question all the time, so I probably should come up with a better stock answer. We just need people. Honestly, we just need more members. Like we need to make more connection to businesses, and we need to, do more other educational things. But honestly, I'm just going to go with, like, the thing we need more of is just more people that care about Framingham, that are literally willing to roll up their sleeves and pick up trash. The more people that are doing that, the more visibility we'll have, the more, Dr. Tremblays of the world will see us out there and want to be part of it. So I think it starts and ends with just more people pitching in.
Mm-hmm. And in terms of you personally and what you've accomplished and what you're hoping to continue to do by building the visibility and bringing more people into the organization, how do you find the time and passion to just continue every day?
So I asked Brad Butenhoys from the Low Litter crew the other day how he finds the time, because he's also, like, on 3 steering committees in the municipality and has a full-time job. And his answer was the same as mine. Like, this is what we do. I don't have hobbies. Like, I don't do things. Like, what I do when I wake up early in the morning, what I want to do when I'm staying up late at night, and when I have 10 minutes in the middle of the day, is I want to do this work. So this is my hobby. This is my passion. This is what I do. I used to snowboard regularly. I gave that up. I used to do other things. I just don't. Like, this is what I want to do. I am so inspired by working with people in the community, and I'm so inspired by taking on seemingly incredibly impossible challenges. So, I had a long conversation with a good friend of mine the other day, where I admitted to her that I think I'm a workaholic. Like, I just, between my, full-time landscaping career, and, it's way over full time, but I just love it. I just love doing this stuff. And I try to tell myself I'm going to do more reading in the winter when I have downtime as a landscaper. And I'm in the middle of a couple books right now, but the last 8 or 9 days in a row, I woke up and I'm supposed to read in the morning. I keep telling myself, like, don't open your computer at 5:30 in the morning. But, like, I just got in a good kick in the last week of doing this KFB work, and I didn't want to read a book in the morning. I wanted to do this. So I don't know. I mean, I probably do too much, but I also just love it. And it's what makes me tick. It's what makes me happy. And if I wasn't doing this work, I think I wouldn't be the same person. I wouldn't be nearly as positively inspired, so you make the time for what's important. And, I have a son, he's 16. He lives most of the time with his mom. So it's not like I have 3 or 4 kids around the house. Like, I have some great friends of mine that are members of KFB, but they have 3, 4, 5, 6 kids, they're not going to have the same kind of time. I'm available, and I want to do it.
What are some of the stories about actual cleanup days that stick out most in your mind that you'd like to share?
So I'll tell you about cleanup days for sure, because I think that's where the real fun comes in. As I mentioned, we started as like a individual cleanup organization where people would kind of go one place or another by themselves or with their, a friend or a family member. But as we started getting a little more comfortable, into the pandemic, we started wanting to have some group cleanups. So the first one we ever did was at Reardon Park. And I actually had nothing to do with it. It was a member of the community that posted on the Facebook group, hey, there's, a fair bit of trash at Reardon Park in the trails that connect to, Lake Cochituate. I'm going to be down there on Saturday at 2:00 or whatever she said, if anyone wants to come. And sure enough, like 6 or 7 people showed up, and they did a group cleanup and filled, I don't know, half dozen bags of trash and made some progress. And it was our first group picture ever, and I used that picture for months until we had some better ones. So that was just like something that happened organically. Towards the end of 2020, we started organizing organizationally cleanups, and they're just so much fun. I can't tell you, like, people show up, they just are so happy to be there. They're so happy to meet other people in the community face to face, because most of the people in the community know each other through the Facebook group. So Al, and Joe, and Mary Beth, and Siobhan, and all these people. But then you actually like meet these like legends in person. I remember the first day I met Al Raposa. We did a cleanup for the World Cleanup Day, which is in the middle of September. And we did actually 3 cleanups that day. One of them was at Cushing Park. One was at Larned Pond, and I forget where the third was. But I went to the Larned Pond cleanup, and Al Raposa shows up. And he's been cleaning up long before we were organization, and he's the one that donated the $100 of jelly to the place to turn food pantry. Right? Yeah. But then I met him in person that first day, and I was like, oh my gosh, like Al, like. So it's just, some of these folks kind of have this, mythical, larger than life kind of aura to them because of the work they've done in the community. And then seeing those people meet other people in person at the group cleanups just makes me smile. And, we found seeing people pull, vacuum cleaners out of the woods, like, what the heck is this doing here? It makes for like some of the most interesting pictures that we've had. So yeah, as a general response, like the group cleanups are just where the fun is. Like I always say the Facebook group is where the magic happens, but the real fun is when we get together as a group.
And you have these stories are just, they're fun to tell. So, you must want to share them even more than you get a chance to. And I would imagine there are many of them about people picking up strange things and having things, occur while they're out there with the group, or, just whatever it might be. I'm sure that there are so many stories.
Well, and that's why at the beginning, we requested that anytime anybody does a cleanup, they just make a simple post with a couple pictures. And that part of that was to build the community. Part of that was to get the snowball effect going. But part of it was because like, it's interesting to see what people find and where they find it. So, given that the foundation of our community is people posting pictures of their progress, we have, almost 2 years and well over 1,000, 2,000, 5,000 pictures probably of the things that people have found along the way. So there's, great documentation in the group of all the ridiculous things that we found. And yeah, it makes it entertaining. People look forward. I led a cleanup yesterday, and I was talking to Deb Kaplan, the vice chair, this morning on our one-on-one. And she's like, I haven't seen the pictures from the cleanup yesterday. And I'm like, Deb, I haven't posted them yet. She's like, I can't wait to see the pictures from the cleanup yesterday. It's like people, know to come to the group to see, like, what did they do yesterday? Who did what the day before? What's planned for tomorrow? So the pictures, I think, everyone, the old saying, a picture's worth 1,000 words. Like, so the pictures are the foundation of the story of the community. And we have so many of them at this point that really kind of are who we are.
Do people like to share with others the stories about the strange things they pick up, or the things that they're tired of picking up that they see everywhere they go?
We're sick of picking up masks and nips. Those are like
nips, you said, like alcohol.
Yeah, the tiny alcohol bottles. I picked up nearly 500 of them over a 2-day span a couple weeks ago. We partnered with Sustainable Framingham in April of 2021 in a NIPS collection effort to see how many we could find. And I think it was somewhere in the order of 5,000 that we picked up in like a week and a half with the community. It's a problem. And that's like a whole other thing that we're trying to deal with. as a project in and of itself. But then the new one with the pandemic is masks. I pick up masks every single day. They're everywhere.
Everywhere. I'm sure you use the grabbers for that, right?
Yeah. So I used to not use a grabber. I used to say at the beginning, I'm not a grabber guy. I was more of a throw gloves on and bend down and pick up trash. But I'm doing enough picking up these days that the grabber is handy to not physically touch the things, but so I don't have to bend down 1,000 times and pick up everybody's masks and nips. But yeah, so there is the perpetual problems that are like, persistent, and the things that frustrate people, mostly masks and nips. But cigarette butts are probably the most annoying, because there's probably 10 times as many of those as there are anything else, and they're so freaking small. So oftentimes I just skip over cigarette butts. If I'm trying to get from point A to point B and I pick up every single cigarette butt, I never get there. So there are those things that are perpetually problems. And then there's more just like the interesting stuff. People get really excited about posting the pictures of like the weird stuff they find.
Car parts or appliances or strange
all
things.
of it, literally everything. I think at this point we've found some example of everything. So yeah, and I think people get excited about posting those things. And even when we find things that are somewhat commonplace, we have a few members of our group that specialize in trash art. So Joe Hudock and Sarah Hammerla, I can never say her name right. They post pictures of trash put into other things. Sarah posted a picture of trash kind of into a stick figure the other day, and Joe did a smiley face, and I think somebody did a peace sign a couple of weeks ago, just like linking the trash together for the purposes of taking a unique picture. So people, even with the commonplace stuff, people find ways to make it fun, and that's the whole point. It's a fun, positive, supporting community. So a lot of get lazy and I just post a picture of the bag of trash that I collected at the end of the day. I don't necessarily like make something creative out of it, but the idea is that people can do whatever they want, and a lot of people pick up trash and don't post. We encourage people to do it so that there continues to be a robust community. And so people know, oh, so-and-so is patrolling such and such road. Like, that's good to know. Or, hey, I didn't know so-and-so lived on my road. That's good to know. But there's people that they pick up trash for 20 minutes on their walk and they don't want to be bothered posting to the group. And that's great too. It all counts. It's all forward progress. So, some people kind of go to the extreme and make art and other folks don't post, but it's all part of the idea that we're all on the same team and we're all trying to make progress.
Do you think that it has brought any families out together to do pickup and create kind of a family bond as well?
Yeah. So there's a number of folks. Shannon Stevens, who's on the Parks Commission, and she's the one that started the dog park and all that. So she was out with her husband and kids the other day as part of a group cleanup. Pete Mustonen has been doing a bunch of cleanups of local parks, Simpson Park and otherwise, but he often takes pictures with his wife, his dog, and his kids as they're out there. A number of other folks have done cleanups as part of a family outing, getting the kids out there. Those are our favorite. Honestly, if you put a dog or a kid in the post, you're going to get more likes and comments than others. It's just science, I think, at this point. So yeah, a lot of people kind of get out there and do it with the family, and that's a fun thing too.
Now, you were talking before though about cigarette butts and nips being and masks. Does it appear to you that people are throwing these out of car windows, or does it appear that they're just dropping them as they're walking? Like, what's the source of this? What's the behavior?
I'm convinced that 90% of the nips are being pitched out of car windows. And I mean, I was sort of referencing earlier, like that's a whole other problem to deal with. Like, that's a drinking and driving, social health, safety problem. It's more so than a litter problem. So like, we've dabbled with what can we do about nips, but there's just so many challenges with that. But yes, I find them on roadsides regularly, and many people find them on roadsides regularly. And I think people are unfortunately like buying them, drinking them when driving from point A to point B, and then chucking them out the window to dispose of the evidence. It's just, and similarly speaking, cigarette butts, I find them right along those same roadsides with the nips,
Well, you formed a good relationship with the liquor store down by where you live when you cleaned up that area. Maybe getting some feedback from liquor stores would be helpful. They can maybe hand something out when they sell nips or something, because if it's that big of a problem, what did you say, 5,000 in that one effort?
I don't remember the exact. We did a KFB Sustainable Framingham Nip Week. I think it was in April or May of 2021, and it was in the order of 5,000. It might have been 4,000, might have been 6,000, but it was several thousand were picked up in the course of about a week.
I mean, I know they like to sell them. Obviously, it's good for their business, but on the other end of it, there's an issue that needs to be addressed for sure. And it sounds like
Yeah.
you're putting some creative thought into place to see if you can come up with some ways, but partnerships with the liquor stores throughout the community might help as well. It sounds like you're building great partnerships, so maybe that's another one.
Yeah, I plan to speak to the folks at the liquor store down the street from me that I've established the relationship with and ask them, like, we're finding a lot of nips. They're not just on roadsides. They're like literally in the parking lot of the liquor store. Like the 400 or so that I picked up in the one day were literally in the parking lot of the Walgreens and the liquor store. They were just in bushes and along the curb and just behind the building. And so people are literally buying them at the liquor store, walking out to their car, drinking them, and then throwing them immediately on the ground. So I think, I plan to go speak with those the fine folks at Waverly Wine and Spirit soon and letting them know, like, I'm picking up a lot of these nips. I'd say about 99% of them are probably coming from your store. Not blaming you guys, but can we start to talk about what a
Yeah, they
solution
might have
look
some
like?
ideas, and maybe
Yeah.
they know from other liquor store owners as well, because I'm sure it's a problem that's everywhere, not just not just one store. So it's something that they might
100%.
have thought. Yeah, yeah.
And that falls into the bucket of, things that we're going to address at some point. We have a business team that we're establishing. Actually, our first meeting's tonight, and we're going to be having like a 4 to 6 person subcommittee that works just on establishing relationships with businesses. And I imagine one of the people on that business team is probably going to be like a liquor store specialist or something like that. We're still figuring it out, but so I think that I'm hesitant to like forge forward with like trying to ban nips in the community like
Right.
the town of Chelsea has and other communities. I think it's a very nice solution, but I want to make sure that we like speak to 2 dozen liquor stores before we even think about doing something like that, to understand the ramifications and the impact, because we're not anti-business here. Like, I'd love it if there was no nips, but I also know that nips are probably 20% of the profit for any liquor store. I think they're high profit items. I think they sell a lot of them. As much as it's, I think, a public health, social trash problem, I also don't want to just like, kick the liquor stores while they're down, kind of a thing.
Right.
So we'll get there eventually with the
You're
nips.
not trying to make it punitive. Exactly.
I mean, we might go down the path of deciding that banning nips is the solution, but it's going to be after talking to 2 dozen liquor stores and proposing it as a possible idea and seeing if they have some other creative solution. Like you said, maybe every nip they sell, they say, please don't litter. Or maybe they have a little placard. Like, when we're going to be, as part of the business team, we're going to be looking for partnerships within the business community on a number of different levels. We're going to have a bunch of different asks of different businesses, and as part of these asks with the businesses in the community that establish a relationship with us, we're going to have window decals and maybe like little placards that can be put at the point of sale checkout that say something like, please don't litter. Maybe it's like the same thing as our yard sign, just smaller. And so we're going to be establishing relationships where they can be hopefully part of the solution as well, not just like, we're going to ban nips because you guys are selling a lot of nips.
Right.
Like, how can we all be part of the solution? Because nobody's happy about the litter problem. Like, I really think that 90% of the litter probably comes from 1% of the people in the community.
Right.
I think this is the 99% of us that like aren't throwing trash on the ground.
Right.
1% of the community is, 7,300 people or whatever. Like, I think a lot of this trash is probably coming from, 750 to 1,000 people. So there's the other 72,000 of us that live here or work here or otherwise
Right.
that want to be part of the solution. And we found, generally speaking, that businesses do. So it's about approaching businesses with the right intention. Not that we're like, okay, your dumpster out back is a disgrace, you better clean that up. No, like, how can we help you clean it up and keep it clean? And what can we do? What can we provide to you guys to be part of this? Like, how
Right.
can we work together to solve the litter problem? Not because there's no way we're doing it as just a volunteer effort. We're going to need the city involved. We're going to need businesses. We're going to need other community groups. We're going to need corporate sponsorships. Like, it is going to be a robust long-term solution. So it starts with approaching people with the right intention of like, how can we help you to help us?
It sounds like great partnerships will help grow the organization over time. It can't all happen immediately, but you're making good progress. You also talked though about things like putting up signs and putting up decals on windows, et cetera. Obviously, it would help for donations to fund some of that. So do people go to the website if they want to make a donation, or how do they do that?
Sure. Yeah. If you go to k-f-b.org or keepframingham.beautiful.org, at the top, there's a little page, there's a page to donate, and there's a link on that page that brings you to the Keep Massachusetts Beautiful donation page, because they are our fiscal sponsor. So the large majority of our donations go through them as our fiscal sponsor agent. So yeah, if people go to our website, there's an opportunity to donate. And honestly, the more donations we have coming in, the more cool stuff we can do. The more hats we can order, the more decals we can get, the more signs we can put up. So, you know, we are a very frugal, fiscally conscious organization. We only spend money on things that we feel like are really, really good investments. But honestly, the more money that comes in, the more opportunity that we have. So we're always seeking donations. We'll be launching a fundraiser in a couple months, but perpetually, as any nonprofit organization needs, we would love donations.
Thank you for tuning into the Audrey Hall Show today to learn more about Keep Framingham Beautiful. And if there's any way you can get involved, your participation or your donation would be greatly appreciated. Look for Keep Framingham Beautiful on Facebook and at their website. And thank you so much for tuning into the Audrey Hall Show, where you will always learn something new.